Welcome to an episode of Crippled by Culture, where we talk about everything in life and related to the disabled and chronically ill community. My name is Sean Gold, and I'm an author, advocate, and nonverbal public speaker for the disability community. To provide a quick visual description for accessibility, I'm a black man with a white tracheostomy breathing tube in my neck. I am wearing a black shirt. The person off camera who you are hearing speaking for me is Terry Briscoe. This video is of a Zoom call with me and the person talking for me off camera, and my guest is in the other box next to it. I would like to thank Terry Briscoe for being my voice transcriber today in this episode. In this episode, we are talking about the intersections of disability and writing.
Before we get any further into the interview, I want to give a shout out to our partnering nonprofit festival for the series, Festability. As the media director, I help organize a wonderful event in St. Louis at the Missouri History Museum. We have so many activities and vendors set up all over with an amazing headliner for our main stage each year. It is the best event in St. Louis to celebrate your disability unapologetically while celebrating the Americans with Disabilities Act. Make sure you come out if you're nearby. Check out the link in the description to learn more. Thank you Festability for sponsoring the series. Now, back to the show.
Now let's get to today's amazing guest. Jennifer is a member of the San Diego Memoirs Writers Association, where she was a member of the month in September 2023. Her writing has been published in Shaking the Tree, volumes 3 and 4, and in 6 Feet Apart in the Time of Corona. Her debut memoir, My Unexpected Life, Finding Balance Beyond My Diagnosis, was published on September 7, 2023, and is an Amazon bestseller. Received the honorable mention in the biography-autobiography category at the Hollywood Book Festival. Is a notable 100 book in the 2023 Shelf Abound Best Indie Book Competition, and won a Gold Book Award from the Literary Titan. She is the author of the month for April 2024 at San Diego Central Library, and won a red ribbon from the Wishing Shelf Book Awards. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing? Would you mind giving us a visual description of yourself, please?
I am great, Sean. So I'm a white woman with long, blondish, grayish hair and teal glasses. I'm a wheelchair user, and I'm sorry, I'm just lost my train of thought.
Happens to us all.
What else did you want to know?
Well, we appreciate you giving us a description. First, do you identify with having a disability or chronic illness? If so, do you mind sharing what your disabilities or chronic illness is that you have?
So I have a my main diagnosis is Friedreich's ataxia, which is a rare genetic neuromuscular disease. I was diagnosed with that when I was 17. Then about 10 years ago, my neurologist also discovered I have MS, or multiple sclerosis. So, which they can't really pinpoint how long I've had it. Any symptoms I had probably were taken considered to be part of Friedrich's. So no one really looked into it. But they know I've had it for a while. So.
Thanks for letting us know that. Can you tell us how your disability affects your everyday life?
My everyday life, well, I use a power wheelchair, and up until about 13 or 14 years ago, I could do basically most of my activities of daily living by myself. I could transfer and do all that, but I moved to a condo in 2010 and everything was set up differently. So I couldn't really transfer any longer or anything like that. So I started needing more help with transferring and getting dressed and things like that.
Gotcha. You said you were 17 when you got diagnosed. Do you feel
Yeah.
like there are other things going on that you feel like are not diagnosed, like how the MS came about?
No, not really. I think perhaps the MS came 10 or 20, probably 10 years later, I would say. But at the time it was 1990 for one thing. So there was no genetic test or anything. The doctor really used his powers of deduction and his diagnostic skills to figure it out. It was later genetically confirmed when the diagnosis, or when the test became available, but for the most part, I was a textbook case, so it made sense to me.
Mm. Did you have to go through your own internalized ableism?
Internalized ableism was definitely really ingrained in me and still is, but I would say until about 2000. Sorry. Sorry, until about 2000, which was 10 years after my diagnosis, I had a lot of internalized ableism in terms of wanting a cure or understanding the need to walk and things like that. So until I started working at independent living centers, uh, that was really when I discovered that no, I'm okay the way I am, and not being able to walk doesn't make me unhappy. That doesn't determine whether or not I'm happy. So that was a huge turning point for me. But up until recently, I've really kind of ignored my own internalized ableism. Then last year, when I was uh, doing jury duty, that's where a lot of my insecurities and internalized ableism really came out, and I really began to discover more about it and really start examining much more because I know there's still some in there for sure.
So you think that began, was that before the ADA?
Well, so the ADA was passed 1 month before I was even diagnosed. So, but it's something I've still continually dealt with.
Okay. All right, so the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, that for people that don't know, defines a person with a disability as a person who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activity. This includes people who have a record of such impairment, even if they do not currently have a disability. Also includes individuals who do not have a disability but are regarded as having a disability. The ADA makes it unlawful to discriminate against a person based on that person's association with a person with a disability. In your visual description, you said that you wear glasses. Having heard the ADA definition, does this change how you view wearing glasses as visual aids for your eyes?
A little bit, but I guess in some ways it does, but at the same time, glasses are supposedly the things that correct it, so I think that's one of the it's a really good example of something that used to probably be uh looked upon as uh, something to discriminate people against, for having uh not perfect vision. But of course, they've realized, well, that's not really that big of a deal because they've figured out how to correct it.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about your involvement in the writing community. How long have you been a writer?
So I dabbled in poetry through grade school and high school. Really bad poetry. Not, nothing profound, but I kind of stepped back from it for a while partly because I have difficulty writing, like handwriting. So that became a deterrent for me. But of course, again, this was 1990 when computers weren't as prominent as they are today. And a lot of them were like you had to program everything.
Mm,
So once word processing became an option with computers and stuff, I started to write a lot more. And in fact, ended up changing my degree to English because I really liked to write. And I'd always kind of wanted to write a book. I just never really thought anything of it until I took a writing class. And somebody who was a literary agent at the time encouraged me to think about writing a book.
So is that what made you want to be a writer in the beginning?
I just always really enjoyed it. When I was in college, I found out I vastly preferred essay questions as opposed to multiple choice. I guess if I'm gonna be a smartass about it, like it felt easier to BS my way to the correct answer.
Hmm.
With multiple choice, it was, wrong or right. So it like I think that was part of the reason why I liked it.
I'm doing an English major now. Do you feel like earning it was worth it?
Yeah, I do. I mean, honestly, where I got my degree from probably wasn't the greatest program to do it through. Uh, but I I'm glad I did it.
When was the last time you found it hard to write on your work in progress? Was it a disability related issue?
Oh, there were a lot of times uh because I was writing memoir, there were pieces I avoided writing about just because I didn't want to confront whatever was going on in the scene. That made it difficult for me.
Mm. Tell us about your writing process. Can you take us from start to finish?
So in the beginning, I would do kind of a lot of the frou-frou stuff and and light incense and all that. And um then later on it just got to the point, and this was pre-pandemic. I found I got really distracted at home. So I did the typical thing you did, like I just took everything to Starbucks, put my headphones on, and spent too much money and a lot of time doing that. So um then the pandemic hit and I was forced to go back to trying things at home, which kind of worked, I guess. I made it work, but I didn't try to go through all the ritual stuff like burning incense and all that.
You mentioned getting out of your own space was helpful. How do you manage your writer's block? What other ways do you do that?
Well, for me, a lot of it comes down to music. Again,
Mm.
because I'm writing memoir, a lot of it is like I'll put on a song that brings me back to that time, or some sort of thought I'm trying to uh get out. And so that has been really helpful for me.
That's a great technique. Let's see. What advice do you have for others struggling with their block?
I think it's, you know, it's important Music is one tool, but I also think that even if you do have writer's block, write something, even if it's not what you're intending to, it might somehow morph into that.
Okay. I listen to music too. I make playlists to coordinate with each book.
Yes, I have a playlist for my memoir too. If you follow me or if you add yourself to my playlist or to my mailing list on my website, you get the playlist to the song, to the book.
Can you tell us some of the songs that are on it?
Oh gosh, there's stuff from it's all 90s Gen X stuff. So it's like Duran Duran, lots of Dave Matthews Band, Arnie DeFranco, uh Goo Goo Dolls, uh In Excess, the Pixies. I could go on. Yeah.
All right, that's a great list. Let's get back to your books. Have
Yeah.
you ever included disabled characters in your stories? And if so, tell us about them.
Well, so because my book is memoir, it's based on me, so I'm the disabled character. I have other characters. Well, um, I I do have other characters in the book that in my mind are disabled characters, but I ended up having to morph a lot of characters into one character that isn't necessarily disabled. But I definitely, if I ever write fiction or anything like that, I would definitely include somebody with a disability.
What would you tell other disabled people who want to begin? Hold on one second. I try to write disabled characters in my novels, but I don't make the story around the disability.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I don't like I have a really basic story written about it's a rom-com and the female has a disability. But that's not what it's about. That
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
yeah, I think that's important.
Agree. What would you tell other disabled people who want to begin their writing careers?
I think it's uh, important that you just start despite what everyone says, oh, you type too slow or you can only do this much. No, there are tons of different ways to do it. Some use uh technology is great way to start for some people. I used a lot of help in terms of uh just telling someone how you want it to feel, or even in an email or whatever it is, and having them help you get something out in a quicker manner.
Communication devices are how I began.
Yes.
So I always get asked this question and it kind of disappoints me. Every time I reveal that I wrote or am writing a book, the first question is if it's about my disability. You wrote a memoir, and I'm also interested in knowing about it. But did you get encouraged to do one, or did others want you to do it first?
Yeah, well, I had always had it in the back of my mind that, oh, this, not to like be egotistical or anything, but I was like, well, this is kind of a compelling or interesting story.
Yeah, definitely.
And, until I took, it was a screenwriting class that I took, and the gentleman encouraged me to think about writing a book. That was probably the first time I was like, are you serious? Like, you think I'm really good enough to do that? Based on the little part of it he had heard, part of a story he had heard. So that definitely encouraged me.
That's awesome. Let's see. Hold on, got a message coming. I would love to learn screenwriting. I think that's what's next for me.
Yeah, that's a really awesome thing, I think.
How was getting your book published for the first time? What were you feeling?
I was very anxious. Part of it honestly was because I didn't know how my family would react, because a lot of the things that happened they knew nothing about. So it definitely made me curious about how they would react. Initially, I wasn't, well, I still don't think I'm all that concerned with what people think of me after it, because I reveal some, what other most people would say are embarrassing things about me. But I felt like I had to be authentic in order for the book to be good.
Absolutely. Can you share with us some of the things that you revealed that people may not have known?
Yeah. The biggest thing is probably my struggle with incontinence and controlling my bladder. So that was one thing, as a teenager, you never want to admit that. You do whatever you can to hide it. Even though I'm sure everyone freaking knew. But who's gonna come up to you and say, hey, I noticed you pee your pants all the time? No one was gonna do that, but for sure I talked about it.
Let's, let's get back to your Amazon selling. How did it feel to find out that you became an Amazon bestseller with your book, My Unexpected Life, Finding Balance Beyond My Diagnoses?
I was ecstatic about that. That was pretty unbelievable.
And that had to be a great feeling. What was it like to get noticed at the various award ceremonies and competitions?
That is a feeling uh, I really can't describe. But it's also, there's a little bitter sweetness. And again, I don't know if I would call this internalized ableism or what. But there's always a part of me that wonders, are they recognizing me because my writing is good or because I'm disabled? So there's a little of that going on. And we talk about the accolades I've gotten, which are all great and very appreciated. But there are also tons I have not gotten. And those disappointments are part of it, come along with it as well.
Does that motivate you?
Yes, it does.
Speaking of motivation, how do you keep motivated to write and publish when the royalties are very low? As an author, I know that we can't live off just writing. Are you ever discouraged about it?
At the moment, no, because I know I'm not gonna make millions off my book unless by some miracle, somebody makes a movie or some outrageous things happen, or 1 in a million chance. So I'm not too worried about it. What I'm more concerned about is that the story is accurate and that it's portrayed in a way that doesn't make people with disabilities look like, oh, isn't this a tragedy, or or sympathy or pity. Like, this is my story. I'm just telling you. I don't want anyone's pity. I made it very clear to my publisher when I began the process. Like, I don't want to be anyone's inspiration. In in that inspiration porny kind of way. Of but there's also a flip side that I am learning to accept a little more, in terms of, yeah, you are an inspiration just for doing a book, period. Like, having having a disability doesn't really mean anything. Anyone who publishes a book, that's a big deal. So from that standpoint, or from that point of view, I guess I am an inspiration, but it's still hard for me to accept.
It is a tough balance to walk. You have to do both sides there. You definitely you want to tell your story accurately. And you also, like you said, you don't want to be somebody else's inspiration for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's see. How. All right. right. So, was there anything else you wanted to discuss with us today that we didn't touch on, or do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I'm curious about your books, Sean. Because I didn't even realize that you had written books. I'm sorry, I should have done more research.
Before we get into that one, let me get to one other question while he's typing that out.
Okay.
How do you find a balance between facts and fiction writing?
Oh gosh, facts and fiction. Well, so in memoir, you know, it's a true story, but for uh narrative or creative purposes, you can sort of bend the truth a little. Um, and you have to do that at some point, but you definitely want to keep the important things factual. Um, and like I said again, accurate.
Accuracy is very important. All right. So, so let me tell you about my first book. My first book is about a gay male sexual assault survivor, and it's called Pure Love, or Is It? And my second book is an alphabet book about disabilities that will be out this summer.
Hmm, that's really cool. And is the character in the first book disabled or or somebody in the book?
It's a good question. One has dyslexia and one has dyscalculia.
Have you ever thought about writing your memoir? Come on.
He does not want to.
Yeah, yeah. I was really hesitant about writing things about my bladder. And so, and I was told, but that's where the juice comes in. That's where the meat of memoir comes in, the good stuff.
And
When
when you
you talk
when you
about,
talk about the real stuff,
yeah, when you talk about the things you don't want to talk about, and I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
my
And
speeches my speeches act as my memoirs. That's all people need to know.
yeah, yeah. Well, but I was gonna say, I think one of the areas that the disability community is really lacking is the perspective of people of color who are disabled. So from that point of view, I would think your memoir would be really powerful. But
Thank you. I appreciate that.
that's my opinion.
Well, we'd like to thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation with me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did. I appreciate the insights that you provided as well. If people want to connect with you and support the work that you do, where can they do so?
They can follow me at Jenny G. Writes on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook at author Jennifer Gasner, and my website is jennifergasner.com. And you can buy my memoir at Amazon and basically anywhere books are sold, they can probably order it for you. And I think that's it. Oh, and if you don't forget, if you sign up for my mailing list on my website, you get the link to the playlist for the book.
Awesome. I'll make sure to share everything in my description below. Once again, I'm Sean Gold. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment all your thoughts, and subscribe. Also, make sure the bell is on to be notified of each upload. We'll see you next time on another episode of Crippled by Culture.
Thank you.
Want to listen to Crippled by Culture on your favorite podcast platform? Well, now you can. Crippled by Culture is now available wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search up the show title and make sure you subscribe. Thank you for being a listener.